Welcome back to Iraqi Dinar News, where we keep you closely connected to the developments shaping Iraq's economy and the value of the dinar. If you're holding IQD or tracking Iraq's monetary policies, today's report is something you cannot afford to miss. As of the current date in the USA, sweeping new restrictions have just been introduced that could dramatically shift how you manage, move, or even hold your dinar. Both inside Iraq and abroad, the Central Bank of Iraq has made a bold move, and the ripple effect is already being felt. This isn't just another policy change, it could redefine the financial future for millions. Just hours ago, the Central Bank of Iraq issued a public notice announcing tighter controls on dinar activity. These rules apply to domestic and international transfers, cash handling, foreign exchanges, and even real estate. The stated goal? To tackle inflation, stabilize the currency, and improve oversight. But behind the scenes, it's also stirring confusion and concern, especially among everyday Iraqis and expats who've patiently held on to dinars in anticipation of a potential revaluation. So what's changing? First, travelers exiting Iraq can no longer carry large stacks of dinars with them. A strict cap is now enforced, and any amount above the legal limit must be officially declared. Forgetting to do so, or trying to bypass the rule, could result in your currency being seized or facing heavy fines. This move is targeted at undercutting illegal trading and currency smuggling, but for regular folks planning to send money to relatives or support family overseas, it complicates the process. Bank transfers aren't being spared either. Iraqis who frequently use online platforms or local branches for transferring funds, especially large sums, will now need to submit more paperwork. Proof of income is no longer enough. You'll also need a reason that aligns with your financial profile, and you'll have to document it. The central bank is calling it a push for financial integrity, but critics argue it burdens honest customers with bureaucracy and delays. Currency exchange windows are also operating under new limitations. Planning to convert dinars to US dollars or euros? Be prepared to show government-issued ID, and if the exchange exceeds a certain value, you'll have to explain why. This isn't just a hurdle for travelers. It also affects business owners, students preparing tuition payments abroad, or families supporting relatives overseas. And it's hitting small business even harder. Iraqi entrepreneurs trying to pay international suppliers are now under more scrutiny. If you want to convert dinars for importing goods, you'll have to back it with a contract, invoices, and tax records. Authorities believe this will discourage illegal trade and promote accountability, but small shop owners say it could crush operations with red tape and slow down commerce. For the Iraqi diaspora, especially those in the United States, Canada, Europe, or Australia, the headache continues. Those holding IQD abroad in hopes of future gains are now facing new hoops when trying to move funds. Transferring large sums into foreign accounts demands complete documentation of ownership and intent. These steps are designed to prevent laundering, but many believe they could also limit legitimate financial mobility. And there's more. Iraqi banks will begin auditing customer accounts at random, particularly those with large dinar balances. If discrepancies are spotted, the account can be frozen until all questions are resolved. This means every receipt, every transfer slip, every contract involving your dinars must be saved and accessible. If you've purchased dinars in the past and didn't document the origin, you might be at risk of a delayed or denied transaction. That's not all. Real estate transactions involving dinars now fall under the new lens as well. Any property deal over a specified threshold must be routed through a registered financial institution. Cash exchanges between individuals are no longer welcome and will be flagged. The government believes this will stabilize Iraq's real estate market and stop inflated housing prices caused by undocumented cash trades. But once again, the added layers of compliance may discourage investment in a sector already crawling with inefficiency. Before we continue into the broader implications of these new restrictions, including how they impact hopes for a future dinar reevaluation, take a moment to process what this all means. These aren't minor rule changes. This is a systemic restructuring of Iraq's financial behavior, and whether you see it as good or bad likely depends on your situation. Now, let's look at the bigger picture. Why are these measures being introduced now, and what do they indicate about the future of the Iraqi dinar? According to officials, these reforms are part of a long-term strategy to bring Iraq's economy into the modern era, with global oil prices becoming more stable and signs of gradual economic recovery. The government claims this is the moment to tighten control, earn international trust, and pave the way for financial advancement. These restrictions are intended to show that Iraq is serious about restoring credibility and curbing practices that have historically held its economy back. But many citizens and financial analysts argue the government hasn't done enough to communicate clearly or provide guidance. The abrupt rollout has created confusion, leaving ordinary Iraqis unsure of how to comply. While the central bank says more detailed instructions will follow and that banks will provide individual guidance, there's still a sense of unease. The timeline for full enforcement spans the coming months, so there's a narrow window of time for dinar holders to get their affairs in order. So what does this mean for people hoping for a revaluation? It's complicated. On the one hand, these tough reforms suggest that Iraqi leadership is laying the groundwork for a stronger, more globally accepted currency. That's the good news. On the other hand, the added scrutiny, reduced liquidity, and tighter controls could temporarily suppress trading activity and delay the kind of market momentum needed to spark a rapid value shift. It's a double-edged sword, better structure but slower movement. Investors will need to remain patient and focused on the long-term potential rather than short-term disruption. There's also a personal element to consider. These kinds of financial changes aren't just numbers on a screen, they affect daily lives. When you suddenly find your ability to move your money restricted, anxiety rises. That's understandable, but panic often leads to bad decisions. The smart move now is to remain calm, stay updated, and take logical steps to secure your assets. Talk to your bank. Ask for clarification. Make sure your documentation is thorough and up to date. And don't forget to assist family and friends who might not be as financially literate. Another critical warning: as official options tighten, the black market tends to resurface. Already there are reports of unlicensed exchangers popping up, offering to bypass restrictions in exchange for higher rates or quicker transactions. But these routes are risky. They expose you to counterfeit currency, scams, and even legal consequences. Iraqi law enforcement has already announced plans to increase raids and prosecutions of illegal currency operations. If you're serious about preserving your wealth and positioning for a future RV, the safest route is always the legal one. Stick with licensed providers and official financial institutions. That said, there is reason for cautious optimism. If Iraq can enforce these measures without widespread economic disruption, the benefits could be significant. A more stable dinar means less inflation, stronger buying power, and increased interest from international investors. That translates to more business opportunities, better infrastructure, and hopefully, more jobs and income for Iraqi citizens. Stability builds trust, and trust attracts global partnerships. If that happens, the groundwork for a real and sustainable revaluation could be closer than ever. It's also important to look at how other nations view Iraq's efforts. International observers, including economic think tanks and currency analysts, have taken note of these moves, and interestingly, some believe they could signal Iraq's intent to eventually reintegrate with global banking systems in a more meaningful way. This ties back to conversations held years ago during the administration of former President Trump, when talks about reintegration and financial reform were first pushed into the spotlight. Iraq's progress was slow, but deliberate. What we're seeing now may be the payoff of those earlier diplomatic and economic frameworks. So where does that leave you, the dinar holder or observer? In a critical position. The steps you take now will either put you ahead of the curve or leave you unprepared when more changes take effect. Document your holdings, review your financial footprint, And most importantly, stay connected with reliable news sources that are tracking these changes closely. Relying on rumors or exaggerated claims could cause serious setbacks. At Iraqi Dinar News, our commitment is to provide accurate, timely, and actionable updates, not just speculation. If you found this breakdown helpful, consider subscribing to stay ahead of future developments. Leave a comment below. Are these new policies a step forward or a roadblock in your opinion? How are you preparing? Let's share insights as a community and support one another through what may be one of the most significant financial shifts Iraq has seen in years. Thank you for spending your time with us. Keep your records organized, your mind clear, and your eyes on the horizon. The path to revaluation might be bumpy, but with knowledge and strategy you can navigate it wisely. Until next time, stay safe and informed.